This is Steve Adubato. Welcome to Lessons in Leadership. I'm here with my colleague, Mary Gamba. How you doing, Mary?
I'm doing great today. How are you?
Doing great. We're here at East Main Media Studios. And Brian, everything good?
Everything is great.
Terrific. In just a couple of seconds, we're going to be talking to our good friend, Michele Siekerka, who's the president and chief executive officer of the New Jersey Business and Industry Association, a leader who also teaches others and promotes leadership with women in particular. A recent seminar that we did down there, a recent conference, but leadership across the board in the business community. Mary, real quick, let folks know where they can find Lessons in Leadership.
Absolutely. They can find us on Facebook, Steve Adubato, PhD, that's ADUBATO, as well as on Twitter at Steve Adubato. They can go to our website at stand-deliver.com. We have a lot of great resources there, free articles. They can find information on our books, and also on Apple Podcast and Google Play, and you can give us a like if you really enjoy what you're listening to.
You also know you can find us on the AM 970 website. You can find us on the Business and Industry Association site, NJBIA, and FiOS On Demand, et cetera, et cetera. I'm just plugging. All we're going to do for a half hour is plug.
You never do that, Steve. This is something new.
And did you know I have a book called Lessons in Leadership?
No way. I happen to have it somewhere on my desk. I'm going to pull it out.
Well, you should know you wrote half of it.
There it is.
More importantly, enough about us. Let's go to our good friend, Michele Siekerka, who is the president and Chief Executive Officer of NJBIA, New Jersey Business and Industry Association. How are you, Michele?
I'm doing great. Such a pleasure to join you once again.
Absolutely. Michele, I was just making reference to a conference that was held. I mean, I was overwhelmed by the number of women in leadership positions who were there that the Business and Industry Association held. I was also honored to have the opportunity to moderate a forum on building your own brand and executive presence. Question: when did you know that you had innate leadership qualities?
Wow, what a great question. I'd have to say that it comes with maturity, and what I mean by that is just some years of experience. I tend to say in life, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, and I kind of believe that. And so we all walk around with some of those war wounds, but it is those war wounds that give us the experiences that then help us to rise as leaders. And so I don't know that I can pinpoint a specific day or moment that it happened, but I have to say I feel in each iteration of my career, my leadership skills have been built by the different types of experiences that I had the ability to participate in.
So, Michele, let me ask you, the kinds of women who were there that day, and by the way, there were men there as well, but literally hundreds and hundreds of women from all walks of life.
Over 500. Mm-hmm.
Okay, are they women in the corporate world, in government, in entrepreneurial situations, creating their own businesses? Are they all different kinds of women in different leadership positions?
Absolutely, at all different levels in their careers, which is really important. The diversity of this event is significantly important. It's diversity across industry as well as where you are in the phase of your career.
By the way, Michele, do you mind if we plug some of our sponsors on Lessons in Leadership? By the way, can you relate at all to thanking your sponsors, Michele Siekerka?
Well, I'd have to say, we enjoy a tremendous partnership with you, Steve, and certainly through our award-winning New Jersey Business Magazine, we enjoy the opportunity to share mutual opportunities and benefits that all of our New Jersey leaders can benefit from.
That being said, Michele also knows that we work very hard. The Business and Industry Association works very hard at getting and keeping sponsors. So I want to thank our friends at Prager Metis, at New Jersey Resources, at RWJ Barnabas Health, and also at Valley Bank, as well as a range of others. Michele, let me ask you this. A lot of talk about the C-suite, women in the C-suite and in the boardrooms. Are we making any significant progress in breaking through and having more women in the C-suite and more women on boards, or are we stagnant?
We are certainly not stagnant. We are making slow and steady progress. I do believe that we are moving the needle, maybe not at the pace we'd like to, but I'm someone who believes slow and steady wins the race.
Okay. What I'm really curious about, I've been reading one of the leadership books on this desk here. I'm sorry, Andrew and the team here and Brian, for being so sloppy, but I have all these leadership books. And one of them that's been on my mind a lot is this book called Off Balance. It's written by Matthew Kelly. It's a New York Times bestseller. And simply, Michele, what it talks about is the myth of work-life balance, that there is no such thing as work-life balance. It's either you're satisfied or you're not satisfied, or getting to being more satisfied in your work and in your personal life. Question for you, who's always had a seemingly to me, I've known you for many years, a significant professional career. Your family matters so much to you. How do you, I'm not going to use the word balance, how do you juggle it all, and what does that have to do with leadership?
Well, let me say, I have now 27-year-old twins, and so you can imagine, yes, as I was coming up through my career, I struggled with this every day. Let me say that I have read every self-help book on balancing family and work. I am not kidding you. You could see my library. And I commend every author, and I've tried every suggested tip, and there's no such thing. But I would always say that family always comes first. And it happens to work itself out. Follow your gut and your instinct. You know on a given point in time where you are in your trajectory, and it could be even just how your week is going, how your month is going, or the bigger part of your career. And while family always comes first, sometimes it's going to be just fine that you have to take a night to go out to a networking event, or you have to attend a meeting, or you have to travel because it's good for your career. Your family's not going to suffer from it. And particularly if your children understand, that you are out there trying to do good for the greater community, they're going to appreciate the fact that you are out there being a part of society and helping society move forward. I say to my colleagues all the time, leave your mother, spouse, significant other guilt at the door. You will just be fine. But in the sake of the moment, right, just stop and say to yourself, who needs me today? If my family, if today's the day I don't need to be at the softball game or the soccer game, right, because dad's there or my significant other or my parent is there, and I really need to go do this networking, take the moment to do it. Your family will not suffer for it.
I'm looking at Mary Gamba, my co-host and colleague, our executive producer, with two teenage boys. She's looking, saying,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I live it too. And Michelle, great recommendations. I too read a lot of self-help books, and I take a nugget from each of them and apply it where it fits. And I've also found in terms of the balance, as you were just talking about, is I learn to be present in each of the moments. I learn to be present when I'm at work. Not that I don't think about my children or my family, and I will be there if they happen to call and need me, but it's more about being present in each of those opportunities. And do you feel like that's something that's really helped you along the way in terms of being present, whether at work or at home, to really just be the best you that you could be?
Michelle, let me complicate that before you answer it. I'm holding up my iPhone. How has technology made that more difficult to be present? Go ahead.
Oh, there's so much noise in our lives today because of technology. I mean, I really feel for the next generation because their world is so small. Our world wasn't as complicated when we had less technology. So while technology is an enabler, it creates a lot of noise, and it's incumbent upon us to learn when to cut through the noise. Mary, to your point about being present, 100%. When you put your all into a moment, if you take the time to show up somewhere, my gosh, don't just show up. Literally be there, right? I mean, give your all to that time, and that's where passion is. Whether it's time with your children, and then you got to shut out the noise of your work for whatever that period of time is, so they really feel that you were there for them. And then in your career, when you show up to that event or that meeting or whatever it is, they need your undivided attention, and sometimes you just got to put that phone on the side.
You've been listening to Michele Siekerka, the president and CEO of the New Jersey Business and Industry Association. Check out, by the way, Michele, let's plug the website. Let's everyone know where they can go to the website to find out more. Where do they go?
www.njbia.org.
Great stuff. And by the way, BIA sends out these really powerful, effective e-blasts during the day about important news in the world of business and public policy and leadership, et cetera. Last question before I let you go, Michele. One of the things about you, and Michele has joined us on our public television programming for years and continues to do that, to talk about a whole range of business, economic issues, what matters to the business community in New Jersey. But Michele, the one thing about you that I've always noticed is that you have a very high level of what I like to call executive presence. Where did you learn it?
Well, thank you. This has to do with looking at people who you respect and taking away some observations of why you respect them and why others respect them, and then trying to empower yourself with those types of skills. And so over my lifetime, I have to tell you that I have not had formal mentors in my life, but I've had tons and tons of informal mentors. And for me, those are people who I looked at and said, wow, they're really doing something spectacular. They have good presence. What can I learn from them?
Great stuff. I want to thank Michele Siekerka for joining us. After this break, Mary and I will break this down. Again, I want to thank our friends at Prager Metis and RWJ Barnabas Health and Valley Bank, as well as the folks at New Jersey Resources and so many others. Michele, thank you for joining us, breaking down some of these leadership questions, but most importantly, offering some extremely valuable lessons in leadership. Thank you, Michele.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Good stuff. We'll be right back right after this.
This is Mary Gamba. If you want more leadership tips and tools, log on to stand-deliver.com. That's stand-deliver.com.
This edition of Lessons in Leadership is brought to you by Gibbons PC, Prager Metis, Valley Bank, New Jersey Resources, and the International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 825. Welcome back to Lessons in Leadership. I'm Steve Adubato. This is Mary Gamba with me, listening on AM 970 as well as on Apple
Podcasts.
And Google.
And Spotify. I figured that out, absolutely.
And AM 970 on their website and ROI.
NJBIA.org.
NJBIA.
Stand-deliver.com. And FiOS on demand. Yes.
I'm just saying.
Very exciting.
So how about this? We listened to Michele Siekerka talk all about, what are some of the things we talked about?
She was talking about life, the work-life balance, being present in the moment, which is so important if you're at home, being present in your mind and your space at home, and when you're at work, making sure that you're present in what you're doing. And then she went into the importance of reading and learning from others and just really being a lifelong learner, which is something that you and I talk about all the time because you've never arrived. You're just constantly learning.
Yeah, so in that spirit, all the books that we have here, and Michele, again, she talked about this whole idea of lifelong learning. Again, go onto our website at stand-deliver.com. I believe you're going to see a leadership library.
Yep.
Mary and I met in a hospital.
Yes.
I was there and you were working there.
Yes.
And again, I believe we started talking about don't sweat the small stuff.
Yeah, you actually had the book out on your on the table, and I said I love that book. It's one of my favorites. First of all, because it's short. I love things that they're easily digestible.
Yeah.
You could just turn to a specific chapter based on a particular issue or challenge that you're having, and if you're just looking for some insight. So
why don't we do this?
Great.
Let's go through some of these chapters in the spirit of lifelong learning.
Sure.
Because I go back and I still read Carlson. I was reading the other day, do you remember the danger of spiral thinking?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Because I was spiraling. I was thinking, what about if this happened? And what about if that happened and this happened? I had to go back and read that chapter because I was by the end of my spiral thinking, everything was gone.
Oh, totally.
The company had gone bankrupt. We had no more money. I had to be foreclosed on our.
Yeah.
I'm not even.
Oh, I know.
And I'm thinking, what am I doing? How did I get here? Go ahead.
Exactly. And a small degree of spiral thinking is healthy. You want to make sure that you don't get so into the now that you're not seeing the forest from the trees and seeing what could be down the line. You don't want to be blindsided. But what you do need to do is make sure that you're not going into a negative spiral thinking pattern where then one negative leads to another and leads to another, and then it will become a self-fulfilled prophecy.
Excuse me for interrupting.
Oh. Steve and I were just talking about how, one of the chapters,
What's chapter
of course,
29?
Well,
chapter
I was looking...
29 is become a better listener. What were you thinking?
I was looking at chapter 7, don't interrupt others or finish their sentences. So chapter 7, exactly. So I had said to Steve, I had said to you, Steve, I had said that if you say to someone that, sorry for interrupting, you wouldn't have to say it if you weren't interrupting.
I'm not buying it.
Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna deal with this with you because this is an important leadership issue. It's an important communication and life issue.
Sure.
I'm saying, it's so interesting. You say you shouldn't interrupt. And my problem with that argument is this. I engage in what I like to call strategic interrupting. Translation. If someone has said something to you that you want to follow up on, I'll say, excuse me, I'm sorry for interrupting, Mary. Can you give me an example of what you're saying so I can better understand it? Now, that is not the same as interrupting you because I remember years ago, I was in college and I used to ski. I know you find that hard to believe. I had just come back from Colorado and Utah skiing, and I was talking about how great the skiing was. Oh, it was really great. And the snow, and I started talking about it, and someone said, "You think that skiing is great? Let me tell you, I was in the Alps."
That's one-upsmanship. So that's a little bit different than interrupting. But
I'm sorry, you finished because I don't want to interrupt you. Yeah. That is different, Mary. Both of those examples are interruptions.
Right.
I'm saying strategic interrupting is wanting to know more, is looking to clarify, is questioning something you just said so that I can connect with you. Interrupting is okay if your intentions are to move the conversation forward and you're not buying it.
No, I agree in certain cases. That's all. And I wasn't even accusing you of being the one that was interrupting. I was just referring to one of the chapters.
No, it's not at all. You said I interrupted.
No, I didn't.
You think we've been working together too many years?
I said, when you had the idea to go through this book, I said, this is going to be fun.
All right, pick one, go.
All right. Understand separate realities. It could not be more perfect than right now. No.
Go ahead.
I love that. And we've talked about it on the show. So I actually may just move on to another one because we have talked about that before. Separate realities. It's just really, it's almost agreeing to disagree and understanding that somebody may see something from a different perspective.
And the best example I can use is this. And we will not belabor this whole separate reality thing. Again, we've joked on other editions of, Lessons in Leadership, that one of our guests talked about Little House on the Prairie.
Yes.
And you said you liked it. And you grew up in a house, we talked about this a million times, a nice house where people said nice things to each other, like Little House on the Prairie.
Sure.
That was not my reality. My reality was very different. Therefore, the way we see the world is somewhat predicated on our realities.
Right, but the way that I see your world is based on not only my own perception, and that's what understanding someone else's separate realities. In other words, I can't judge you because of the way that you act, just because of the way that you were brought up. So I need to be empathetic to that and understand where that communicator is coming from. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I do agree with that. But there, I always wonder if there's, as a leader, as a person, in a leadership position, are there any objective realities that are not debatable?
Ooh, that's
They're
a good
not
question.
separate. It's like, this is the standard, this is what's expected, and don't be telling me you have a separate reality.
That's a great question. I think in that situation, when you're setting the bar and standards, no, there are no separate realities. I think that comes more into if you're really just talking about maybe someone's delivery, someone's tone.
Yes.
That's where that comes in.
But not standards. How about this one? You ready?
I'm ready.
I got one of my favorite books. Let's do. Okay. Praise and blame are all the same. Do you even remember that chapter?
To say that I remember the exact points of that chapter, no.
You remember the theme?
Of course,
what was it?
That pretty much, I don't remember.
You want to know what?
Do you?
Neither do I.
Okay, good. I actually have one.
Go.
And I love this one. Practice random acts of kindness.
Random?
I have started doing this, I would say, about for the past 10 years, right? So for instance, the other day, it was like 3 weeks ago, I was at Panda Express, a nice little plug for Panda Express. You don't even know what it is. It's a fast food, a Chinese food place. And you go and you pick your foods as you go down the line.
That was a pet store.
No. Well, it is Chinese food.
Leave it alone. You didn't, Mary. You didn't say. Okay,
so listen, I love Panda Express.
Go ahead.
And so we're moving down the line, and then the guy in front of me digging around, and he pulls out a credit card. His credit card was being declined. And it's,
Gave me a credit card.
Well, and pretty much he's scrambling. You could tell like he's sweating bullets, and it wasn't an act. It wasn't like, oh, maybe if I do this long enough, the lady behind line is going to pay for me.
Right.
So I paid for his meal. And again, did I do it? So I didn't go home and tell anybody. Nobody knows. This is the first time I'm talking about it. But it made me feel good. It made me then maybe he'll do something, and maybe it made his day. And, it's just, I like that chapter.
Pay it forward.
Pay it forward. And I do it in small ways. I'll even if I don't like somebody's hair, I love your hair.
Oh, you
right?
lie.
I do.
Leadership and lying. Let's talk.
It's great. No, but it really does. You never know what someone else is going through, and you never know, maybe they're having a bad day, and it just helps to lift it up.
You know
so
why
I like that
you're
one.
full of it?
Why?
Because in another edition of Lessons in Leadership, you said that you've become less empathetic and less patient with all that, and you're still like one of the nicest people I've ever met.
There is a difference between empathy.
Go ahead.
Okay. I didn't like go and like support that guy for the rest of his life and just paying it forward. I think there is a difference. I don't agree in feeling sorry for people. And I think that's where empathy comes in. I didn't feel sorry for him. I just wanted to do the right thing and pay for his meal. Does that make sense?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I just want to understand that.
No, it's fine.
Okay, what do you got? Give me one more. Just one more.
All right, one more. Let's see. Another good one. Well, while we're pausing, why don't you look, and I'm going to take a moment to thank our sponsors.
Please thank our sponsors as we stall, but also that is important to do that. Go ahead.
No, it's really great. So we would love to thank New Jersey Resources and Prager Metis. For everyone that is listening to us on AM 970 radio, if you like what you hear, you can also subscribe to the Apple Podcast and Google Play of Lessons in Leadership and the Leadership Hour. And you could follow us on Facebook at Steve Adubato, PhD. That's ADUBATO. And that's
good stuff. I got one I don't like.
You got one you don't like.
Chapter 69. Be happy where you are. Mm-hmm. Sorry, can't do it.
And you don't like that one? No.
Can't.
Well,
maybe your interpretation of it and mine are not the same. Maybe
right. I
separate
see where
realities.
Yeah.
I'll tell you mine. I am not good with saying this is where we are. Now, I try not to take my wife and our kids and my health and the fact that we work with great people for granted. However, would there be a Lessons in Leadership video podcast if we were happy with where we were?
No,
Would there be Think
not.
Tank, the podcast?
No.
Would we be doing a million other things that we're doing? That's to me what it is, constant innovation.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah, no, and I see it that way. I think when I, and again, the exact details of the chapter and how he had intended it, I see it as be grateful, be thankful where you are, in more in a philosophical sense rather than applying it to the work, that you were just talking about. So yeah, I agree with you completely. I don't think you could ever be content, especially at work, and even in life too. You want to always be working to become a better person and to become a better leader.
I just do want to shift gears, okay?
Go ahead.
We've talked about this before, and a lot of people mention Daniel Goleman, but don't really understand it, and you'd like to use the term emotional intelligence. I don't know if you remember we ever did this, but this is one of the pages, if you're looking at us on video, this is one of the pages in our leadership manual, the connection between leadership and emotional intelligence. I'm gonna run some things past you. Mm-hmm. So what Goleman argues, Dr. Daniel Goleman argues, that emotional intelligence is largely about self-awareness, but he also says emotional intelligence is about managing your moods. You ready? Keeping calm, no matter how you feel inside, is critically important to the messages you're communicating to those around you. While passion is essential to persuading people, passion is not the same as toxic emotions. Go.
Wow. You and I have talked about that for years, that there is a difference between being passionate and really feeling an intense, visceral reaction to something that maybe went wrong, and how you communicate that. Because if you communicate it in such a way that the other person perceives it as being aggressive or not the right tone, they're going to shut down, and then you're not going to go anywhere.
Toxic emotions. Mm-hmm. Is that the right word?
I think it is. Toxic, you could call it anything. You could call it anger, rage, but toxic emotions
Toxic is poisonous.
It is. And it could become like a cancer in the organization. If from the top there's a sense that the leadership is toxic, it's going to go down and poison the rest of the organization. And many of the guests that we've had on, and I think Michele mentioned it too when we were talking.
Michele Siekerka, the CEO
yep.
of New Jersey Business and Industry Association.
Yes, and you need to lead by example. And it's sometimes just not in what you say and do, but it's just overall your actions on a daily basis. And if you are leading in the example that you're setting is one of a toxic emotion, then the people that work for you are going to believe that that's the standard and that's what's expected of them.
Okay, so go back to another question about emotional intelligence, which I find fascinating. The only reason I keep talking about this is because I know you understand it. Do you think the people who go back to self-awareness, right? Mm-hmm. Someone who's argumentative, defensive, refusing to accept the feedback that is required to be the coach and leader you need to be, do you think he or she knows it, A, B, even cares to know?
I would say yes and no. I think that yes, the person is aware, and that's just, they believe that they're right. And one of the chapters, as I was thumbing through, is, you know, you don't always have to be right, and that's okay. And do they want to know? Like, I don't think they do in those situations. One thing that we haven't actually talked about, and it's interesting to flip it, we've also given feedback to certain people on our team over the years, and they sit there and they nod and they accept it. And yeah, like, okay, I'm going to work on that. And 3 months later, they're still doing the same.
Weren't we just talking about this?
Yeah.
So how the heck do you know that message sent is equals message received?
It's one extreme to the other. And I think that's why we're able to do what we do on a daily basis. And we've been able to do it for so many years, because there is no one right way. There's no cookie cutter. All right, I just, handled this situation with, employee A, and now I'm going to go work with Bob, and it's going to work the same way. You need to adapt your leadership style to your people. And it's challenging. It's very challenging.
I'm going to complicate things for you. Mm-hmm. You just said Bob. Mm-hmm. We don't have a Bob on the team.
Because we all have all women on
That's
the team,
all I'm
and
saying.
it'd be a weird name for a woman. Sorry.
Very funny. Question. Do you believe that it's harder for a team of all one gender, right? There's me, and then there's all these very talented women on the team. Is it harder to lead in that situation for you?
That's interesting. I think it is easier for a woman to lead other women because we can relate to one another better. We use similar, for the most part, whether it's conversational styles, whether it's wording, whether it's...
I'm sorry, I'm about to interrupt. Should I send a signal first? Sometimes you said you think like, quote, a man.
Oh, no, I do. And that's the next thing out of my mouth was just going to be that way. Exactly. So I work with a team of all women. I lead a team of all women. But growing up, and I've said this to you, that literally I've been always closer friends with guys. And it's just always been easier because I don't deal well with drama. And a lot of times, and again, I'll probably get hate mail, but there's usually sometimes more drama associated with women than men. Men are, just historically, they want to get things done, be done and move on. And then it's just blank. They don't think about it again. Women sometimes tend to think about things a little bit more. They tend to ruminate over it. They tend to, my feelings are hurt. And I don't have a lot of patience for that. But when it comes to leading another group of women, because I am a woman, sometimes that is a little bit easier. That's what I was going to say.
Interesting.
But ironically, I am the only woman in my household because I have a husband and 2 boys. And up until just recently, our dog was also a boy. And so I do find that even though it's challenging, it's also a great opportunity to learn how to lead in that way as well.
Final question. As more and more women gain more and more traction in the world of leadership, whether they be in the C-suite, on boards, et cetera, over time, do you think organizational culture, with a minute left, I'm asking this question, I can't believe it, with more and more women in leadership positions, do you believe it'll have a significant impact in organizational culture?
I don't believe it's going to. I think that just the trend, and even though there are more women in those roles, I don't see a huge shift happening anytime, not in our lifetime.
You don't think so?
No, I don't. Because most of the women that are in those roles are very powerful. They're not the, stereotypical, woman that's super, soft, warm, fuzzy, that when you think of a woman leader, they are really taking on a lot of those more typically male attributes as a leader.
Interesting.
I believe that.
Oh,
I do.
that was Mary
and
Gamba
that's okay.
saying that.
That's
Whoa.
okay. And I don't think there's a problem with that.
You don't?
No, I don't.
Are we too PC there in that way?
I think we're too PC across the board, and that could be a whole other episode. I think that everybody just needs to lighten up. I really do.
By the way, one of the chapters in Carlson's book, Lighten Up.
It's gone. It was too far one way for decades, centuries, and now we're going a whole different way. We got to find a happy medium.
That's Mary Gamba. This is Steve Adubato. This has been Lessons in Leadership. One more time, thank our sponsors.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'd love to thank New Jersey Resources, Prager Metis, also RWJ Barnabas Health, MD Advantage, Valley, Gibbons, Hackensack Meridian Health, and St. Joseph's Health. Yep, absolutely. And thank the great people over at AM 970 and Jerry Crowley. They're the best.
And thank the great people at East
Main Media.
Steve Adubato, Mary Gamba. This is Brian and the team here at East Main Media. This has been Lessons in Leadership. We'll catch you next time.
This is Mary Gamba. If you want more leadership tips and tools, log on to stand-deliver.com. That's stand-deliver.com.
This edition of Lessons in Leadership is brought to you by Gibbons PC, Prager Metis, Valley Bank, New Jersey Resources, and the International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 825. Think Tank, the podcast with me, Steve Adubato, is brought to you by these public-spirited organizations.
RWJ Barnabas Health, New Jersey Sharing Network, the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, moving the region through air, land, rail, and sea. Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield of New Jersey, United Airlines, NJM Insurance Group, serving New Jersey's drivers, homeowners, and business owners for more than 100 years. The Healthcare Foundation of New Jersey, TD Bank, and by Fedway Associates, Inc. Promotional support provided by NorthJersey.com and Local IQ, part of the USA Today network. And by New Jersey Monthly, the magazine of the Garden State, available at newsstands.
Hi, I'm Steve Adubato. We're coming to you from East Main Media Studios in Little Falls, New Jersey. You know, in our work in public broadcasting, particularly our series One-on-One, we sit down with some pretty amazing people. And sometimes when those people pass on, we decide to rebroadcast those programs. That's the case when it comes to James Lipton, the extraordinary James Lipton, who died at 93 years of age. He retired at 92, doing an extraordinary series called Inside the Actors Studio. He was a Dean Emeritus, Actors Studio Drama School at Pace University, Emmy Award-winning anchor, Critics' Choice anchor, the late James Lipton. So back in June 2016, I sat down with Mr. Lipton. Amazing. And by the way, I'm joined in the studio by Nicole Swinnerton, who, let me just ask you, I've been in this business for obviously a very long time. Hopefully I'll be in as long as Lipton was. What did you take from that interview that we're about to see?
It's an incredible interview, and James Lipton is a real icon in the business. I think my favorite part of the interview is how much you can tell he loves his craft, but more than that, he wants to teach the next generation, and he wants to train young actors. And I think that's just a beautiful way to show off the love of your craft.
The other thing you're going to see in this Lipton interview that we actually taped in the WNET Tisch studios over in Lincoln Center, Lipton insisted, I don't know if you remember this, but Lipton insisted on setting it up the way he does his show. Now, we do our show out of the WNET studio in New York the way we do the show. He wanted it. He had his table in front of him. He had his blue cards. The blue cards get you?
Yeah, that was great. Cool to see that on TV.
So he has his own blue cards. He also makes it clear in this interview you're about to see, no pre-interviews. Nicole and our team of great producers do pre-interviews. I get the notes, and then I prepare for the interview. With James Lipton, he does all his research. You'll see him talk about this. There are no pre-interviews with the guest. He finds out everything for the first time. I learned more about interviewing in that half hour with James Lipton than I've ever learned before. It has become one of my top 3 all-time interviews, other than the interview I did with the late Governor Mario Cuomo, and a couple others. I'm not going to go into that, but I'll just say this. This is a conversation that's powerful, compelling, honest, genuine. You also see a section, if you know James Lipton, when he did those great interviews at Inside the Actors Studio, where he would ask guests. By the way, who was his favorite guest that we featured in this one?
Bradley Cooper. He talks about what a great cycle that was for him.
Yeah, and there's a Robert De Niro connection, so you can't lose out there. In those great interviews that he did for so many years, he would ask a series of very powerful, probing questions that I was about to ask him. Well, he turned around and asked me those questions, and I was not prepared. One of the things people are going to see in this interview with James Lipton is his talk about Bradley Cooper as a student, and then he brought him back as an actor on the show. What did that do for you?
He said that was an incredible experience for him, and since Bradley was once a student in his class, and then he actually saw him make it in the business to then come back and be interviewed. I mean, what more could you want from a student? And he said that you'll see in the interview that they cried and cried when they first saw each other again, and it's a beautiful cycle, and I'm sure that that's really exactly what he hoped his work would accomplish.
And there's a Robert De Niro connection in this. I don't want to give too much away when you watch this program, but there's a powerful connection between James Lipton, Bradley Cooper, and Robert De Niro. By the way, it's also important that we let folks know that not only can you check us out every Sunday on News 12 Plus at 10:30, which is followed by, Brian, at 11 o'clock.
Oh, this little show called Tap Into TV.
And by the way, before us, we have at 10 o'clock is Lessons in Leadership. But also people can find us where?
You can find us anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and Spotify.
Right, and also on the radio on AM 970. And our underwriters, I want to thank them.
Sure. So thanks to RWJ Barnabas Health, New Jersey Sharing Network, Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield of New Jersey, and NJM Insurance Group.
So here's the deal. James Lipton, it's one of those people, and I'll say this from a personal perspective, you get into this business and you try to make a difference. You build a great team. Nicole's part of a terrific team of producers and people who work with us every day to make it happen. Brian and his team on the production side. But you really never know how it's going to turn out. And so for James Lipton, he had an idea, not just to teach about acting, but to bring actors, experienced actors, together with students and have an extraordinary conversation. And Bravo bought into it for many, many years. And he brought that concept to the airways. And when you're in our business, there's nothing more gratifying than doing something that's meaningful, makes a difference, and hopefully will live on. So while James Lipton passed at 93, his work will live on. He gave so much to this industry, a teacher, educator, scholar, and broadcaster, the late, great James Lipton.
You may not have heard of TAVR. Raj and Sandhya have. It's the minimally invasive alternative to open heart valve replacement. RWJ Barnabas Health is New Jersey's leading TAVR provider, and we continue to perfect it. Patients are often back to their lives in just a few days. Innovative valve replacement surgery, because you can't be replaced. RWJ Barnabas Health. Let's be healthy together.
Public Television is honored to welcome Mr. James Lipton, a Critics' Choice and Emmy Award-winning creator, writer, host of Inside the Actors Studio and Dean Emeritus, Actors Studio Drama School at Pace University. Let me welcome you on behalf of everyone in the world of public broadcasting, Mr. Lipton.
Thank you very much. I'm very glad to be here.
I need to ask you, first of all, thank you for bringing this blue card, which it doesn't make it official.
I'm naked without it.
Yeah, well, thank you. I've often, first of all, the idea that you are here is important to all of us, and more importantly, important to our audience. The key, or the keys to this series, which has been on the air for how long?
We are in our 23rd season.
Why has it worked, Mr. Lipton?
It's worked for two odd reasons. When I was the dean of the Actors Studio Drama School, I created it with my colleagues at the Actors Studio. And when we began it, we knew that we had teachers. All of our teachers are life members of the Actors Studio. We knew that it would be a very important graduate school. It gives an MFA. And we had teachers from the studio, people who could give us 30 weeks, people who could give us 6 Fridays, and so forth. I had one opening, and that opening was for those people who couldn't give us 6 weeks of teaching, but who were members of the studio, colleagues of ours, people from the industry with whom we'd worked, and whom we wanted to come and teach our students. It is a master class. And so I sent a letter out to the community from which I'd come, and I said, these people are liable to say something important. And television is the only way to preserve it forever. And Bravo, to its eternal credit, I believe, responded.
You pitched the idea.
Yes, I pitched the idea of both the school and the television program to the studio and to the television industry. But would you like to know a wonderful secret?
Share.
That links us forever with PBS. When we created the school, which was my idea, and I worked with Norman Mailer and Paul Newman and Ellen Burstyn. I mean, we had a great committee that put the school together. We asked Charlie Rose if we could come on and announce the fact that the Actors Studio, for the first time in then 47 years, was going to create a degree-granting program. Charlie invited us on the show, and there was a flood of applications. Within 3 years, we were the largest graduate drama school in America, and we owe it to Charlie.
And public television.
And public television.
You
That's
announced
where
it
we
on,
went.
you announced it on public television.
That's where we went. We knew, we were smart. We knew where to go.
You have done so many extraordinary interviews.
For years and years and years, for decades,
Yes.
I was asked, what guest in the whole world do you want the most? You know what my answer was?
Go ahead.
The night that one of our graduated students has achieved so much that he comes back to our stage and sits next to me as my guest, and Bradley was the one.
What was that like for you, Mr. Lipton, when that moment happened and Robert De Niro walked out and your student, Bradley Cooper, is there? What was it like?
That moment was from the 250th episode when he came back. But the first time that he came as a guest, as my guest, as me sitting with you,
Sure.
we looked at each other and we burst into tears, and we had to stop and recover ourselves before we could go on with the show. And he cried all through the show. He kept bursting into tears. He's a wonderful man, and as we all know now, is a brilliant actor. But I auditioned him. If I'd turned him down, he would have stayed at Georgetown and become a diplomat.
You know, it's so
And a
interesting.
great one.
I'm sure. But as you talk about this, what strikes me is the personal, human connection that you feel to your students. Talk about it.
Well, when I woke up one morning, 1994, with an idea in my head, a complete idea, everything, down to the curriculum, down to the credits, down to the teachers. And I went to Jonathan Fenton, who was then the president of the New School for Social Research, where we began. And I said to him, what if I could persuade the studio to, for the first time in 47 years, teach a graduate degree-granting program? And he said, where's the pen and when do I sign? And that's when those people worked with me, and that's when Charlie Rose invited us on, and that's how it started. So the school, I was busy then writing my third musical for Broadway, and I started to step aside. My colleagues at the studio said, you can't, you have to start this, you have to launch it. I said, okay, I'll do it for a year. I did it for 10 years. I was its dean, and that school, I guess if I have a letter to the world, that school is it. And those students, I go to the repertory season each year when the graduating students show their wares, and I sit there in such awe and with such pride and with the deepest feeling. It is, I suppose that's my letter to the world.
You know, often when I sit in this seat, in this studio, at the Tisch, WNET studio here in Lincoln Center, I often feel blessed is a word that's overused by a lot of people, but I do feel blessed. I feel incredibly fortunate, and this is one of the reasons for it, to be able to talk to people, and more importantly, listen to people like you.
That's the key.
How often do you feel like that?
How often? Every time I walk on that stage. Look, if when we started this whole thing inside the Actors Studio, somebody had put a gun to my head and said, I'm going to pull the trigger unless you predict that in 22 years, it's still going strong, you will be viewed in 94 million homes in America on Bravo and 125 countries around the world.
125 countries around the world.
That is correct.
94 million homes.
That is correct. You will have, the show will have 18 Emmy nominations, making Inside the Actors Studio the 5th most nominated show in the history of broadcast television. The show will receive an Emmy Award for Outstanding Informational Series. You personally will receive the Critics' Choice Award for Best Host.
2015.
Yes, that's correct. If somebody had said that to me predicted or I pulled the trigger, I would have said, pull the trigger, I'm a dead man. I saw none of it coming.
None of it.
Not only that, but I made 2 vows to myself. One, that we would not deal in gossip, we would deal in craft, which of course I thought might make us dry and off the air in a year. And the other, that there would be no pre-interview. It is the only show of its kind that I know of where there's no pre-interview, none. That's why I do the blue cards. For each show, I spend 2 weeks, at least, sometimes 3 or 4, 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, preparing those blue cards myself.
Explain that. For folks who understand, I want to really understand what Mr. Lipton is saying. And I'll disclose in our world, our producers do pre-interviews.
That's
and
correct.
I will look at the notes. I will look at the notes, and then I will decide what I want to do. But
I probably couldn't do that. You're probably much smarter than I am.
No,
I probably would fail at that.
That's not the case. You do all your research. You do it.
I'm alone in my study, and I'm there for 2 weeks or 3 or 4, watching every foot of film and working on the blue cards, and then I churn them out, and then we go on stage. What I've compared it to, and what the guests have sometimes compared it to, is a kind of circus ring where there's a high wire with no net. We're out there for 4 or 5 hours. It's a master class for graduate students, and we're up there on that high wire with no net, and that's the way the show works. I did that with no pre-interview. I figured that would force us into a conversation. And we would have to do what you said a few minutes ago, which is the key to it all. We'd have to listen to each other, which is what actors do when they're acting well. And if the show has any secret, that's it. They don't know what's coming next. I don't know what's coming next. And that's the thrill of it. And I go on that stage with them, and you know the people that I go on the stage with. It isn't their celebrity that excites me. It's what might happen between us. And when things go awry and all those 400 blue cards avail me nothing because they've gone off in a brand new direction, I'm the happiest man in New York.
As you say that, Mr. Lipton, what strikes me is all that preparation, and so many people who want to go into this business and think it's about the list of questions you have that makes a great interview. You just proved that is not the case.
Oh, no. The questions are meant to evoke an answer, and the answer is everything. I actually I edit the show myself with my colleagues. Jeff Wirtz is the actual editor, the physical editor, but I do the creative editing. And I edit myself out of that show. I'm on the screen less than any host in television, I think, for good reason, because there are people who are on that stage are saying things that really matter, and they're the reason that the people tune in all over the world, 125 countries. That's not a joke.
When you interviewed Robin Williams, when you were with Robin Williams, what was it? Go ahead.
Well, Robin, he came out on the stage, and he suddenly began to dance around and carry on, and it was finally, after quite a length of time, I raised my hand. It was about 7 or 8 minutes. I raised my hand and said, "What do you want?" I said, "I want to ask a question." He was on his own, and then that went on for. It was our first 2-hour show, and we were in that theater on the stage for 5 hours that night, and every moment of it was sheer genius. The most famous moment on our show, yes, without question, was the pink pashmina that he took from a young woman in the first row, and he did about 8 minutes on the pink pashmina, changing characters with it, turning into different people, and producing humor that was the equal of anything that anybody could see on television that year. Genius, genius.
Speaking of genius, I'm almost embarrassed to do this. Can I? The questions, the genius questions. All right, I have to do it. I don't have to, I choose to. Your questions, not mine. Can I flip the table? Can I turn the tables?
Let me ask you a question. If I answer them, will you answer them?
Oh, boy. No, I can't. I can't do it because I'm no good at this.
Don't worry about it. We'll
What's your favorite word?
Honor.
What's your least favorite word?
The N-word. No matter who says it, and no matter what its purpose may seem to be these days, it is a word that was meant to injure, and no context makes it okay.
What is the sound or noise you love?
Silence. The most underestimated sound in the world.
The sound or noise you hate?
the din that passes for joy in restaurants and public places when people scream at each other or they think they're not having a good time.
What profession, other than what you're doing today, would you like to attempt?
I would like to be a premier danseur, but with this proviso, never old and never injured.
What profession would you not like to do, Mr. Lipton?
That's easy. Executioner.
And finally, if heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
See, Jim, you were wrong. I exist, but you may come in anyway.
This is public broadcasting. I'm afraid to ask you your favorite. Can I do the favorite curse word? No.
You can.
I can?
You can ask me mine.
I hear our president somewhere in the building. Can I ask him his favorite? We'll bleep it. Your favorite?
No, mine is not. You won't have to bleep it.
Favorite curse word?
It's not. It's not obscene, and it's not scatological. It's profane. You can tell when I'm really upset. The first words out of my mouth are Jesus Christ. And that is objectionable to many people. And I apologize right here and now for saying it. But nevertheless, that's my favorite curse. I know that comes out because it comes out before I can stop it.
What turns you on, what turns off?
What turns me on is words, not mine. But I think that words, especially in the English language, are our most precious natural resource.
What turns you off?
Humiliation, especially toward a defenseless child.
Do you mind if I tell people James Lipton?
Mind?
Well,
I'm in your debt.
Inside.
That's my memoir, published a few years ago. And that's my other letter to the world. That's An Exaltation of Larks, the book about collective nouns like a pride of lions and a gaggle of geese, and all the real ones that I found and the ones I made up.
Mr. Lipton, my producers who talk to me in my ear, you go without a net. My producers are insisting I ask the question. You want me to do this? Try. They want me to answer. You want me to answer the questions? Try it. Go ahead.
Oh, that's wonderful.
I'm going to try. I've always been uncomfortable with this. Go ahead.
What's your favorite word?
Love.
What's your least favorite word?
Hate.
What turns you on?
My wife.
What turns you off?
Oh, boy. My first answer, I'm not going with. I got to go with you first.
No, you don't.
Bullying.
What sound or noise do you love?
Luther Vandross.
I always remember Ellen Burstyn's answer to that. It was birdsong in the morning and Rachmaninoff at night. What sound or noise do you hate?
Yelling in our house.
What is your favorite curse word?
Not doing favorite curse word. It is it's that word. It's
the F word.
Yes, the F word.
Yeah, it's almost everybody's favorite.
And everyone on our staff knows, so I'm sorry.
What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
Oh, I would always love to have played center field for the only baseball team that matters, the New York Yankees.
And what profession would you not like to participate in?
Anything that involves working with your hands.
Finally, if heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
I know you tried your best, Steve.
Not bad at all.
Thank you, Mr. Lipton.
Very good answers.
It's been an honor to have you with us.
An honor to be here. Thank you very much.
Okay.
I'm so indebted to PBS.
We're indebted to you. That's it, folks. We'll see you next time. So that's why that interview is so special. Again, James Lipton passed on March 2nd, 2020, but I will never forget that interview. Particularly, you think you know what to expect when you're interviewing someone, but when they turn the tables on you and they start asking you questions, particularly the probing questions that James Lipton asked me, I frankly was not ready, Nicole.
I can't imagine what you must have felt like. Would you have changed any of your answers a couple years later?
I don't think so.
That's good.
You know, look, when he asked, what did I answer Luther Vandross to? It was a question, help me on this?
Yeah, your favorite sound, was it?
Yeah, he said it was silence. And for me, it was Luther Vandross because I made the connection between my wife and I, first time we heard him perform at the New Jersey Performing Arts Center. But the thing about Lipton, as I think back on it, the art of conversation. I'm a student of conversation. Think about it, study it, make mistakes all the time in it. Lipton has this and had this extraordinary ability to get you to feel that it wasn't a television interview, that you're actually having a conversation. And he's an exceptional listener. Did that stand out for you?
Absolutely, and I find it very interesting as a producer myself to see the different styles of interviewing and to see how you can go question to question to question and still come up with an amazing conversation, or there's a completely different way of doing it, and it's a lot more of a natural conversation. There's just many different styles of it, and he showed a really great one.
Isn't it interesting, and we said before, that Lipton doesn't do pre-interviews. Nicole is a part of a team, or a 10-person team, and a lot of our producers do pre-interviews. And so I'll get those notes. And I said this earlier. Was it interesting for you to see him be the producer, the host, the researcher with those blue cards? He had no idea what he was going to get back. And he went wherever he chose to go based on what was said.
Absolutely. That was really fascinating. I actually didn't know that any host of any show didn't do pre-interviews, have their producers do pre-interviews. So I thought that was really cool to hear that he does all of that himself. And what did he say? He spends 12 hours a day for weeks working on this?
Yes, he'll be in his office.
That's impressive.
Yeah, I want to assure everyone I do not spend 12 hours, as you may be able to tell from my interviews. No, but again, this is the opposite. We have 30 seconds left. Larry King used to say, Larry King wrote a book about interviewing, and he said, I never read the book. I know nothing about the guests, and I find everything out for the first time. And I thought, wow, that's lazy. Meaning, I understand that there's something in between Lipton and Larry King, but I'll say this. I said it before, I'll say it again. I learned more about, forget about broadcasting, just about human communication, interaction, engaging other people, listening, and really creating something that makes a difference in people's lives. And that's what James Lipton did for us. So on this very special edition of Think Tank, the podcast, I want to thank the folks over at Bravo and the people at James Lipton's operation. And thank you, Nicole, for joining us as well.
Sure. Happy to be here.
Catch you next time on Think Tank, the podcast. But James Lipton would say this as well, I'm sure. You can watch, you can listen, but most importantly, make sure you think for yourself.
Hello, my name is Janice Campbell, and my daughter, Dr. Jamila Irons Johnson, saved 6 lives through organ donation. When the Transplant Games of America come to New Jersey this summer, I will honor Jamila's life-giving legacy along with thousands of families from all 50 states and beyond who will pay tribute to their loved ones and celebrate all that donation and transplantation make possible. Please join me in honoring the journey. Learn more and get inspired at njsharingnetwork.org.
Think Tank, the podcast with me, Steve Adubato, is brought to you by these public-spirited organizations.
RWJ Barnabas Health, New Jersey Sharing Network, the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield of New Jersey, United Airlines, NJM Insurance Group, the Healthcare Foundation of New Jersey, TD Bank, and by Fedway Associates, Inc. Promotional support provided by NorthJersey.com and Local IQ, and by New Jersey Monthly. Transportation provided by Airbrook Limousine, serving the metropolitan New York, New Jersey area.